All right, inshallah, we'll start. So, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم ما بعد. So, we have been going through the Seerah, alhamdulillah. We have reached at the birth of Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam last week. Where is the... oh, here we go. So inshallah today we will be studying about his early childhood. But before we start that, means I was listening to a sheikh earlier today, and he was talking about how it's a great blessing of Allah for us to gather in the mosque and in the zikr of Allah, and we never actually thought like that, but we are in the house of Allah, so we are the guests of Allah, and you only allow people. Assalamualaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You only allow in your house people who you love or who you like, so you don't want your enemies to come and be in your house. So Allah will only allow people to come to his house and stay and be part of any activities which is going on and be involved in the zikr of Allah, who he loves. So we never actually think like that, but I think we should, and we should thank Allah for that he has actually given us the permission and he has given us the himmah to come here, and he has accepted us. So this is not from our own efforts. We have been accepted by Allah, and we should think like that we've been accepted by Allah, and we should not feel... we should feel good about it, but we should not feel arrogant or proud about it, because it's all because of the Allah's rahmah, Allah's fadl that we are here. But we can boast about it, that if somebody has been invited by Queen, he will go out and tell everybody, I was the guest of the Queen. So, I've gone too far. Okay, so the first thing we were discussing last week, we were discussing about the birth of Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. We discussed in quite a lot of detail about the day and the date and what are the different opinions and about the dates. So there are... Rabiul Awwal is the month which pretty much agreed upon. All scholars kind of agreed that it's Rabiul Awwal, although there are some very minor opinions about other months as well. Some narrations have said about Ramadan. Ramadan, we know, is a blessed month. Everybody wants to do everything in Ramadan, so they put Prophet's birth as in Ramadan as well. So, but mostly it's agreed upon that it's the first half of Rabiul Awwal. The exact date is, we don't know exactly what was the date. There's a lot of strong opinions about 2nd of Rabiul Awwal, 8th of Rabiul Awwal, 10th of Rabiul Awwal, and 12th. And we discussed that 12th of Rabiul Awwal is the most common one, especially from medieval Islam onwards. But in early Islam, from the Sahaba, we gathered different dates. 12th of Rabiul Awwal is not really that common during that time. But from medieval Islam onwards, it was mostly 12th of Rabiul Awwal because of Ibn Ishaq, because he's such an authority and he said 12th of Rabiul Awwal, so that is considered as the most authentic kind of date. And also the first recorded Milad which was done in the history was done on 12th of Rabiul Awwal. And we discussed that it was done by the Fatimids in Egypt in 570 Hijrah or so. So that's why it's kind of got stuck now to 12th of Rabiul Awwal. So And then we discuss about um, the birth of Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. There is one thing that with the birth which I didn't mention, that when Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was born, one of the slave girls of Prophet's uncle Abdul Uzza, who's we know as Abu Lahab, his actual name was Abdul Uzza. His one of the servants or the slave girls, whose name was Thuwaiba, she came running to give the good news that you had a nephew born, and he was so happy with the news that he set her free. So he said, "Okay, you are free from today because you have brought me such a good news. I am going to free you." So Weber, because of that generous action of Abu Lahab, once he was seen by Abbas radiallahu anhu, who is another uncle of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in his dream, and he asked him, "Oh brother, you were the uncle of the Prophet. Did you get any concession because of being the uncle of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam?" And his answer was, "Yes, on Mondays I get few drops of water, and that's my concession." He is obviously in hellfire because it's in Quran, so there is no dispute about it. So Abu Lahab is one of the strongest enemies of Islam and Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam after he got the prophecy. Before that, he was obviously loving uncle as any uncle would be. But after Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam became the prophet, he got quite against it, and he was quite anti-Islam. He was one of the strongest enemies of Islam, and Allah has mentioned him in the Quran. Do you know where? There's a surah, whole surah, Tabbat yada Abi Lahabin wa tab. So that Abi Lahab is Abu Lahab. So he was given few drops of water on Mondays. Why on Mondays?
Because that's when the Prophet was born.
Yeah, because he was born on Mondays, and that's the day when he actually freed Thoeba. So because of that generous action. Thoeba is the name which we all are quite familiar with, but you would say that's quite an unusual name we haven't heard about. We have got a slightly different version of that name. Sobia, is quite common name in Pakistan. Sobia.
Yeah.
Sobia is the kind of a slightly changed version of Thoeba. So the actual name is Thoeba, which is changed into Sobia now. So the early childhood, Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, after he was born, he was sent as an adopted kid for fostering to Bani Sa'd. So he was given to the Bani Sa'd, which is one of the tribes. Halima was the name of the Halima radiallahu ta'ala anha. She took Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam as a foster mother and took her away. So before we go to that more detailed story of how it happened, why would anybody send their child away from them? So there's quite a few reasons which the scholars have discussed and derived from the Seerah. First of all, they wanted their child to be raised in a pure and healthy environment, and this was the tradition of elite, not the poor and common people, because obviously they had to give money to the foster parents. So it was the custom of elite and the rich, and because Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the grandson of the chieftain Abdul Muttalib, so obviously he will get that privilege of being fostered by another couple. So he was given. So why would they send them? because in the cities there are a lot of people, lot of germs, and we know that the diseases are more where the more people, so they want to protect their kids from those diseases. So all these elite, they would send their kids outside the cities into the deserts where they would live for the first few years to protect them from the diseases. So that was one of the reasons why they would send them out. Other thing was to build their stamina. Although Mecca was a really harsh life, the people of the Mecca, for us, if we consider that, that was really harsh life. But for that period, for that era, Mecca was considered, because it was a city, it was a kind of a civilization inside the Mecca. So they would consider it as a luxurious life. So they would send them outside in the desert to get them more rough and tough. So to get them even more strong, the kids, to build their stamina. So that's why they would send them out in the desert. Again, the other benefit is that growing up in the desert away from the family avoids the pampering of the other family members. We all know as there's a saying in Urdu, that the grandparents are, Allah has created grandparents to spoil the kids, because no matter how much you are strict to your kids, when it comes to your grandkids, all that strictness goes out. So I'm sure Dr. Khanam might agree with me that you can be very strict with your kids, but when it comes to the grandkids, no, there is no strictness. That's only love for them. So it is kind of so all this pampering, so which can happen from your uncles, aunts, grandparents. So when they're outside, it's just one family, one couple who's looking after the kids. So you can't really have that pampering. So that's another reason why they would send them out. The tribes which were raising those children, means that not everybody would give their child to any tribe. So there was some particular tribes which would take the kids. And those tribes were really famous for their fluency in Arabic. So they were really known for their language. And cities, we know that the languages in the cities get corrupted because they've got lots of influence from the other people who are coming to that city. And as we know, Mecca was like the center, and people were coming for Hajj, and there was a lot of visitors or tourists, whatever you want to call them, they used to come, and a lot of Hujjaj used to come even before the Islam. So they will bring their influence of their language. So the city language was getting corrupted. So they would like their kids to grow up learning the pure Arabic language, and that's what was one of the reasons why they would send. In one of the authentic hadith, Prophet ﷺ was asked, "Tell us about yourself," and he said, "I am the dua of my father Ibrahim, and I am the glad tiding or glad news of my brother Isa, and I was foster cared by Bani Sa'd ibn Bakr." So Bani Sa'd ibn Bakr was the tribe which took Prophet ﷺ. Now the story of Halima is that there used to be like a season where all the women who had newborn, because you have to have a newborn so that you can give milk to another newborn. So you should be having the breast milk to feed the. If you take a child, if you don't have any breast milk, you can't feed the child. So there's no point. So all the ladies of Bani Sa'd which had given birth to a child, they would come to take the kids from Mecca, and that will bring actually money. They used to do it for money because they will get paid for it. And when those ladies, they came to Mecca during that time, during the time of the birth of Prophet ﷺ, all the ladies kind of avoided taking Prophet Muhammad ﷺ as a foster kid, because whenever they used to go and they will ask them what their father does, and they will be told that his father has died, so they would like, oh, it's an orphan kid, he doesn't have a father, we are doing it for money, so where would we get the money if he doesn't have a father? So they would not take Prophet ﷺ. And even Halima radiallahu anha herself actually went and kind of didn't take Prophet ﷺ to start with. But then all the other ladies got a child, which they could take back, and Halima Saadia was the only one who was left without a child. So she went in to see and talk to the husband that I feel embarrassed now that all my friends who have come with me, all of them have got a kid. I'm the only one which is left without a kid now. So I feel embarrassed. So her husband said, why don't you take the orphan child? Maybe Allah will give us barakah. And so from that, so that kind of tells us that they were good people, they were good-hearted people. So they said, okay, yeah, why not? We will take the orphan child. So she took Prophet ﷺ in her care, and as soon as she took it, the blessings started showing. So she came. I mean, in one narration it says that she came in on a camel, on a she camel, which was, or in another narration it says that she came in on a donkey. But there was a ride, whatever that ride was, either a donkey or a camel. So when she was coming to Mecca, that was so slow, that was always the last. So whenever they were going, her ride was the last one in the line. So it was very weak and very slow. And on her way back to Bani Sa'd ibn Bakr, when she took the Prophet ﷺ and she started going back, she was always first. So the ride became so strong and it was so fast that she was always going first to the. And they said, have you brought in, the other friends of Halima said, have you brought a new ride? Have you brought a new camel? And she said, no, this is the same camel. And she was like, this camel was always last. Now this is always first. What's happening? So she said, well, it's Allah's blessing. We don't know. So she started seeing the blessings straight away. She went home. At that time, there was a lot of drought, and they were not having any crops. The crops were pretty bad. But as soon as Prophet ﷺ went back, it started raining. The land became so moist, and they started having so much crops. They had a goat which had gone barren, was not giving any milk anymore. And then the next morning they saw it like a new goat. It's full of, the udders are full of the milk. So she started seeing all these blessings coming, all these barakas were coming because of the Prophet ﷺ. So she was very happy with all these. So the next thing which we find in the books is Shakka Sadr, the opening of the heart, which the Quran has mentioned, Alam Nashrah Laka Sadrak. So that's Sharh Sadr, that's the talked about this. So Anas ibn Malik relates that the Jibreel came to Prophet ﷺ, and in another narration it says that Jibreel was with another angel. So there were two angels, one of them was Jibreel. So Jibreel came to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ when he was 4 years old. Okay, before that I actually go back to, so it was the custom that when the foster mothers, they would take the kid, they would bring them next year to meet with the child. So they would usually keep them for 2-3 years. But Halima Saadia, she saw so many blessings coming, so she has invented 1,000 lies. Oh, he's still young, he can still get sick, he is still growing up, he needs to be stronger, can I just keep her a bit longer? I think it would benefit if we keep, so that she can keep him, because she was seeing so many barakas coming from by having Prophet ﷺ in the house. So she tried to keep him longer. And when Amina saw that she is so keen and she is so sincere, she said, okay, you keep Muhammad in your house for a bit longer. So he was there for 4 years. And this was the time, what happened is when he was 4 years old, Jibreel came. He was playing outside with his brother. Oh, I forgot to mention, Halima had the child, which obviously a newborn, the brother of Prophet ﷺ, who was the foster brother, and she already had an older daughter. Her name was Shema. and the son's name I couldn't find. I've looked it, I've googled it as well, and the seerah which I'm following, the sheikh said that he had a look, he couldn't find the name, so I don't know the name. I googled it myself and looked at internet, but I couldn't find the name. Does that book have the name?
I'm checking.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Shaima was the older sister, and then so he was playing with his brothers and other kids. Jibril came with with another angel, and overpowered him, took him down, and opened his chest.
So was that command of Allah that Jibril should go to Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? That a command by Allah?
Yeah, by the command of Allah, obviously. Yeah, sorry, I didn't get the question.
No, did Allah tell Jibril Sallallahu
Yes.
to go and
Yeah, and do this. Yes, obviously. So I mean, we know that angels can't do anything from their own will. So they are built that way, that they will always obey the command of Allah. They can't really think from their own, so they can't do things on their own. So human beings are the
This, you were listening this earlier. It said they have character, as in like personality. So if they
yeah personality, but they can't do anything from their own will. They don't have free will.
لا يعصون الله ما أمرهم ويفعلون ما يؤمرون.
So-
They don't disobey Allah Azza wa
Yeah.
Jal, whatever He ordered them, and they do as they are.
Yeah, yeah. So they don't have any free will. They don't do things from their own
I
will.
understand that, but then if they don't have any free will, then why would they have any like
Character is that
feelings? I suppose because they've shown like they don't like people or they.
yeah, they have got feelings, but they can't do anything. They don't do anything, any action from their own will. So they only wait for Allah's command to do anything. So that's the
Simple
angels.
example would be a slave. A slave might have character.
Yeah,
or
have a feeling.
personality. However, without the command of their master, in this case,
Yeah, they
Allah,
won't do.
they're not empowered to do anything.
Yeah. So I mean, angels are built that way. Human beings and jinns are the two creations of Allah who have got free will, and that's why they will be punished. So they will be judged because of that, because they have been given free will, so they can do things from their will. That's why they will be judged on the day of judgment. So Jibril and another angel, they came and they overpowered the Prophet ﷺ. They threw him on the floor, on the ground, and opened his chest, took his heart out, cleaned it in a golden cup filled with zamzam, and took away a black clot or a black spot from their heart and threw it out. And Jibril told Prophet ﷺ, هذا حظ الشيطان منكم. So that's a part of shaitan in you, which I've taken out. So let's go to a little bit of a tangent here.
Hold on. When he took the heart out of his chest, was the Prophet still able to see it?
It's not a surgery. It's a miracle. So don't think it as a surgery or as a medical procedure. So that's a miracle. So that's done by the angels, not by a heart surgeon. So so that's so he took that black spot and threw it away. So scholars say that everybody of us have got that black spot. What does that black spot does? It gives shaitan access to whisper. Okay, so shaitan doesn't have any power on us. He can't control us, but it has got access to whisper to us, and then if we listen to the whisper and do something bad, that's up to us. But he doesn't control us. He doesn't have any power on us. So Prophet ﷺ, in one of the hadiths, he said that so whenever a child is born, listen to this, means Shaitan, out of his hatred and out of his anger towards the human beings, any child which is born, as soon as the child is born, Shaitan will prick the baby and according to that hadith, that's why the baby cries. Okay, and
Is it
because we
Iblis?
believe
Is it Iblis or is it just
I shaitan.
Okay.
So, and all of us, every human being is being assigned by the big shaitan, which is the Iblis, a qareen, which is a shaitan, one of the jinns, one of his followers. He assigned, so all of us have a qareen with us all the time. So they know us in and out. Hopefully they're not inside here in the mosque. They're probably waiting outside, and when we'll go out, they will probably come back to us. But so every one of us have a qareen, which is a shaitan, which is assigned by the big shaitan. So everyone has a qareen, and their job is to keep whispering bad thoughts. So if you get a really bad blasphemous thought, think that it's coming from shaitan. It's not from yourself. What we have to do is to resist that evil thought by saying "A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim," looking at the left side. That's the things which have to, and spit on the left side to protect yourself. That's the things which Prophet ﷺ has told us. So everybody has got that black spot, that some sort of a connection, which Prophet ﷺ was taken. And the Sahaba, when he was telling that hadith, Sahaba said, "O Prophet ﷺ, do you have a qareen as well?" And he said, "Yes, I have a qareen as well, but Allah has helped me overpower him, and now he has accepted Islam, and he only whisper good things." So Prophet ﷺ qareen actually accepted Islam. We know there are Muslim and non-Muslim jinns as well. So his jinn became Muslim, and he only whispers good things to him. So because in Judgment Day, on the day of Akhirah, people would say, "Oh, Allah, shaitan has made us do that. Shaitan has made us do that." So in Quran, there is shaitan would say, "I don't have any power," and that's the conversation which has been documented in Quran. There is an ayah which says, "وَمَا كَانَ عَلَيْكُمْ بِسُلْطَانٍ أَنْ دَعَوْتُكُمْ فَاسْتَجَبْتُمْ لِي فَلَا تَلُومُونِي وَلُومُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ." So which means that I didn't had any power on you. The shaitan would say, "I didn't had any power on you. I just whispered, and I just kind of called you to do the bad thing, and you were the one who responded. So don't blame me, blame yourself." So that's in Quran. So that's why Quran doesn't have any power on us, but he will just whisper bad thing. So when all of this happened, the younger brother and the rest of the kids, and probably Shema was there as well, they ran back to the house, and they, "Oh, our brother's been killed, our brother's been killed." So Halima and the husband, they came running out, and they saw Prophet ﷺ sitting on the ground. His face looked completely pale. Obviously he was scared, but then he was a really brave kid as well. He was not screaming and wailing. He was sitting there strongly, but obviously two people have thrown him on the ground, opened his chest, took it out. He's a kid, 4-year-old kid. So when this happened, Halima thought, "Oh, this is not good. Is this something going on? So I better take the kid back to the mum. Otherwise, if something happens to him, I'll be in trouble." So she took Prophet ﷺ. So this is the time when she took him back to Amina. Before that, she was trying to keep him because of all the blessings and all the barakas which was coming. So, and Anas ibn Malik, who was narrating, he said, and he was narrating like 53 years down the line when he's quite old, Prophet ﷺ, that he was saying. But you have to remember, this will happen again at the time of Mi'raj. So at the time of Mi'raj, this will happen again. Isra wal Mi'raj, his chest will be opened again, and he will have this cleaning of the heart one more time. But at that time with one less detail. What is that detail? Which won't be there during that time?
Black spot.
Yeah, there won't be any black spot. So if you read to the hadith of that Isra wal Miraj, there is no mention of removing of the black spot in those hadiths because that has already been removed, so he doesn't have the black spot anymore. That there was a physical line, there was like a scar on his chest which Sahaba could see. So although it's a spiritual kind of cleansing of the heart, but done physically.
Physically, yeah.
So it was physically done. Obviously, that cleaning is not physical cleaning; it's more of a spiritual cleaning, but done physically. So there was physical scar present there. So what was the whole? Why was it done? He was being prepared for to be a prophet, and we know that the prophets are masoom. By that, it means that they cannot commit any major sins. Yeah, minor fractions, things can happen, like Musa alayhi salam.
Sorry, some scholars say they removed Hazza Shaitan. The Prophet ﷺ is a mercy to mankind.
Yeah.
So they took the bit which he could become mercy to Iblis and Shaitan.
Fair enough.
So he wouldn't be merciful to Shaitan and Iblis.
Yeah, that could be another.
So that's the other way around.
Yeah, that could be another.
Interpretation.
Yeah.
Also, did this occur to any of the other prophets in the
The
history of this?
open hearts, we don't know if it happens or not. There is no mention, there is no hadith, there is no authentic narrations to say that. So Allahu Alam.
Okay.
But we know that all the prophets are masoom. They can't do any major mistakes, any major sins, but minor mistakes or fractions that can happen. Like Musa alayhi salam, when he got really angry and he punched somebody and he died. So and then Yunus alayhi salam, he got hasty and he left his people without Allah's permission.
Is that because they're human and they're not divine?
They are human, yes.
They're
So
human.
at the end of the day, they are human. And like even Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he decided to at the Badr, when the prisoners of war, Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam sided with Abu Bakr's Abu Bakr radhiyallahu ta'ala anhu's suggestion of kind of not killing the prisoners of war. There was kind of a little bit of harsh wahi which came down in Quran that you shouldn't have done that kind of thing. So it was not a sin or anything, but it was just a error of judgment, you can call it. And Allah said that in the Quran. So they can make mistakes, small mistakes, because at the end of the day they are human beings, as you said, but they can't really commit any sins. Suleiman, you had the hand raised.
You said the prisoners of war thing that he didn't kill them. Why was that a mistake?
Because Allah said it would have been better if you would have listened to what Umar radhiyallahu anhu said. I'm not going to go into too much detail because we will come to that inshallah. But Umar wanted to kill everybody, all the prisoners of war. But Abu Bakr said no, we shouldn't do that, and he took the suggestion of Abu Bakr because he himself was quite merciful. That was his nature, and Allah said that wasn't the right decision. He should have gone with the other suggestion, which Umar was saying at that time, because he didn't have the power. But we will go into more detail when we will come to that, inshallah. The incidents. So this is another thing which we know of. So the foster family after Islam, we know that after the Ghazwat of Hunayn, the Battle of Hunayn, when all the tribes were conquered, Bani Sa'd ibn Bakr was one of them which was conquered. So there was a commotion going on, and he heard that somebody saying that I'm the sister of Prophet, and Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam brought her, asked them to bring her forward. Then when she came, Prophet ﷺ asked, and how do I know that you are what you are saying you are? And she said, well, I still got the marks of your teeth on my back when I was carrying you and you bit me. And he said, okay, so yeah, nobody would know otherwise that other than Shema of that story. So he freed the whole tribe and gave her a lot of gifts, and they all actually accepted Islam. It looks like that Halima Sadiya, who was the mother, was not there at that time during that incident, but she came to meet with her husband later on in Medina. And when Prophet ﷺ saw her, he stood up and put his upper garment on the floor for her to sit down on it, to give her respect like you would give to your mother. And she accepted Islam. That's the story of the foster family. After that, when he was brought back, when he was 6 years old, Amina took him to Yathrib, which is Medina nowadays. At that time, it was called Yathrib, to meet his family. You remember we discussed he had family in Medina.
Yes.
Do I need to ask how?
You mentioned it twice.
Yeah.
The previous marriage that had happened.
Whose marriage?
I can't recollect the names, but as part of the nikah, she'd said you must come and live.
Yeah, that was Hashim's wife, Hashim, who was the great grandfather. Okay, so his son was Abdul Muttalib, who was in Yathrib, the grandfather of Prophet ﷺ, who was in Yathrib, and his uncle, which was Muttalib, Al-Muttalib, who took him from Yathrib and brought him back to Mecca, and people saw him and said, oh, you have got a new abd, you have got a new slave which you have brought, and that's why his name became Abdul Muttalib. His actual name was Shaybati Hamd. So he had family, he had some cousins, distant cousins there, so she took him to meet the family. And she had one servant with her, Ayman. So she was another like a nanny to Prophet ﷺ. In some narrations, I've gone through few of the books, and one of the books mentioned 3 foster mothers for Prophet ﷺ, and one of them was Ayman. So some narrations have mentioned that Ayman has actually fostered Prophet ﷺ, breastfed Prophet ﷺ as well. Halima Sadiya, everybody agrees on it, so we all know about it. And Thuwayba, you remember I mentioned the slave girl of Abu Lahab, she is the 3rd foster mother. Thuwayba is mentioned in a lot more books as well. So Allahu Alam, it seems like Thuwayba also breastfed Prophet ﷺ, but definitely Halima everybody agrees on it because Prophet ﷺ told us himself. But it seems like there are some opinions about that these 3 women have breastfed Prophet ﷺ. So Ayman was with Amina, and on her way back from, she went there and she stayed there for a while, probably a few months, but then when she was coming back, she got sick and she died just outside of Medina. There is a little settlement called Abwa. Let me just double check. Yes, the name was Al-Abwa, and that's where she died, and she's buried there. Obviously, Ayman brought Prophet ﷺ back, and Abdul Muttalib took over his care, who's the grandfather now, because father and mother, they both have passed away. In Sahih Muslim, there's narrated that when Prophet ﷺ was in Medina, in one of his journeys coming back to Medina, he was coming to the Medina and he just kind of detoured on to one side from the main road, and he just started walking into the wilderness. and Sahaba didn't know what is happening and where is he going, but they started following him, and he ended up in front of the grave of his mother, and he was crying, and he cried and cried and cried to such an extent that his whole beard, and we know from the ahadith that he had a very big beard, very thick beard, and that his whole beard become wet with his tears. And Sahaba don't know anything what's going on, but subhanallah, they are crying with him. Nobody, without knowing why he's crying and why they're crying, but just because someone sami'na wa ata'na means they followed him, and they started crying with him, and then later on they asked him, Ya Rasulullah, what happened? Would you like to tell us? He said, well, I used to forbid you from visiting the graves, but I asked permission from Allah to visit my mother's grave, so I'm giving you the permission that you should go and visit the graves as well. So that's where we got the permission of the graves from that instant, from that story. So he had his mother is buried there, Amina. So the next thing is that living with Abdul Muttalib, that Abdul Muttalib was the grandfather, as you know, and he was a chieftain. He took the care of Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. There are a few stories which are narrated. One of them, that Abdul Muttalib, you have to, as I've said so many times, that he is the legend in the Arabs.
Sorry, back to the visiting graves.
Yeah.
Can women visit graves?
Yes, because there is a hadith from Hazrat Aisha Razal Talana that she used to go and visit the graves as well. Yeah, so I know that there is people
Yeah.
thinks that the women are not allowed. That's not true.
Even at
Not
time of
allowed.
burial.
Not allowed to follow janaza.
Yeah, I mean not at the time because of the mixing with the men.
But as on a separate occasion.
Yeah, I mean to visit grave, yes, they can.
Fine.
Are the children allowed?
Children are allowed. Yes, children are allowed as well. They can go and visit graves.
Is it only family members?
No,
Because-
anybody can
because
go
it's
and visit a
different,
grave.
because, like, sometimes strangers come over to like a grave, or like not strangers but other people.
Yeah, if they want to. I mean, if they want to come, they're allowed. Yeah. Nobody wants to go to a stranger's grave, but if you want to, then there is no problem. You can. Sorry, where were we? Well, Abdul Muttalib, yes. So we were talking that we know that he was a legend. He was as close to a king as you can be, because he was obviously just the chieftain of his own tribe, but he was such a legend because he was the one who rediscovered the Zamzam, you remember, and he was the one who tried to sacrifice Abdullah as well, and then it was saved by when they went to the priestess and 100 camels were sacrificed instead.
Yeah, that's why he's a legend. But what about physically, or just?
He was physically as well, because he was really a tall, handsome man, and he's the one who was in charge of Kaaba, and he was the one, when Abraha came, he left the Kaaba and made the dua and said, Allah save the Kaaba, and then all the birds came and they destroyed Abraha's the whole army. So all of these make him really the big name. He was the really legend of the Arabs. So he had a raised platform. You remember we discussed about Darun Nadwa. Abdul Manaf was the Qusay. Qusay was the one who instituted Darun Nadwa, which is like the parliament. And he built a structure there as well, which was like a raised platform where the chieftains, they used to sit and discuss the political matters, all the chieftains, every afternoon in the Kaaba. And Abdul Muttalib at his time he had that raised platform where he used to sit, and nobody was allowed to sit apart from Abdul Muttalib. I mean, you can compare it with a king's throne. But one day, Prophet ﷺ came running and jumped on that raised platform, and and sat on that platform. So his uncles, Abbas and Abu Lahab, and they tried to stop him. Well, what are you doing? I mean, you are not allowed. This is Abdul Muttalib's place to sit. And Abdul Muttalib said, no, leave him. He is my child. Just let him sit. So he had really great love for Prophet ﷺ. So that's one story which we know of. The other one is that when he was about 7, 8 years old, um, uh, Prophet ﷺ's uncle, they lost some camels in the deserts. So they sent Prophet ﷺ to go and find him, and it took him a long time to find the camels. By the time he came back, it was already quite dark, and Abdul Muttalib was really worried about him. And when he came back, he hugged him and said, I'm not going to let you out of my sight again. But listen to the reason which the uncles gave, that there is no thing which Prophet ﷺ has done and he hasn't been successful. And we were getting desperate to find the camels because camels are quite expensive property. So that's why we sent him, that whatever he does, he is successful. So, and we believe Allah's barakah is with them. So they sent Prophet ﷺ, who's only 7, 8 year old, to go and find the camels, because they knew that he will go and he will find them, because whatever he does, he's successful in that. So that's the other story. But when he was 8 years old, Abdul,
Just on that point,
yeah,
was there malicious intent from the uncles?
No.
It was genuine.
genuinely,
They knew
that
he
will
would get the camels and he would bring them.
Yeah,
back.
yeah.
Okay,
So
that's fine.
yeah, no, there was no hatred or anything. There was no malicious. So Abdul Muttalib, when he was 8 year old, Abdul Muttalib got unwell. He was on his deathbed. He was an old man. He lived, according to the narrations, he was more than 100 years old when he died. So he married 5 women, and he had, we discussed when we went through the genealogy, he had 12 sons and 6 daughters, so he had lots of children. From one of his marriages, he had lots of daughters, but he had 2 sons as well, which was Abdullah and Abu Talib. So Abu Talib and Abdullah were full brothers, like Abbas and Hamza and Abu Lahab. They were not full brothers. They had the same father but different mothers. So Abdullah and Abu Talib, they were full brothers, like the same father and same mother.
Was Abu Jahl an uncle of the Prophet?
No, he was from a different tribe. Maybe a distant relative, but no, he wasn't an uncle. So Abu Talib was his uncle, so he entrusted Prophet ﷺ to Abu Talib, because he is the closest relative now alive. So on his deathbed, that's what he did. So he entrusted Abu Talib with the care of Prophet ﷺ. So when he was 8 year old, he was orphaned again. So third time he is orphaned now. So even before the birth, his father died, then his mother died. Now at the age of 8 year old, he lost his kind of next father, or a father figure you want to call, if you want to call Abdul Muttalib, who's the grandfather, he died. So why such hardship? Why he needs to be? Why didn't he? Allah raised him in the luxury with his parents, with having both parents alive. So there are some wisdoms which are derived. Anyone can tell anything why? Any ideas?
Is it that if you're like fostered, then you have more,
Not fostered. I'm talking about orphan.
Orphan, yeah.
Yeah.
If you're orphan, then you have more mercy for other like orphans or
Yes.
other
Yes.
like people
Yeah.
who are in
Yeah. That's one point.
Resilience, the ability to show your own initiative, survive on your
resilience. Yes, exactly. So these people who are not raised in the luxury of their parents and love and all of that, they become more mature, as we were discussing
Grow
last week.
quickly,
They become more mature more quickly. They are more resilient. Um, they are more merciful, and there are so many ahadith about the orphans that I and whoever takes care of the orphans will be in Jannah like this. He showed two fingers like this, like close to each other. Um, so if you can't do anything else, just like put your hand over the hairs of an orphan, and you will get as many good deeds as their hairs are. So there's so many ahadith about looking after the orphans. So why? He must be remembering himself, because he was orphan and he was orphaned so many times. So yeah, and then the most important thing which the scholars have mentioned is that nobody can say that I have a part in raising up Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So Allah took care of raising him, because he was not really looked after by anyone for long enough. So like for Musa, in Quran says, وَاسْتَنَعْتُكَ لِنَفْسِي وَلِتَصْنَعَ عَلَىٰ عَيْنِي. Like Allah says about Musa, and I chose for myself, and I chose you for myself, so that you may be raised under my care. So like Musa, because he was thrown in the river and raised up by Pharaoh and his wife, so Prophet ﷺ was raised up by Allah's fadl and Allah's care. So nobody can take that kind of privilege that he raised Prophet ﷺ, and Prophet ﷺ was what he was because of the care which he got from whoever raised him. So it's Allah's mercy. And the third thing is that because of that, well, we know that he was taken up by Bani Sa'd ibn Bakr, and he got had a very, the language was very pure, Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And there's a hadith in which he says, Uthita Jawami'ul Kalm. I have been given by Allah the most succinct, precise of all speech. Means he was really good in speech, which he learned from Bani Sa'd ibn Bakr. Now, the last part, I'm just thinking, should we do it or not, because it's already over 9:05, and I think I don't want to rush it, and I won't be able to finish it in 4 or 5 minutes, so I would probably leave it for the next time. There is a story, the next thing which we know of is, we all heard about the story when he went to Syria, but because, as I mentioned previously as well, that the Seerah which I am following is more academic. It's not just about learning it, it's about discussing it and seeing if the things which have been mentioned, are they actually true or not. So we will go into a bit more detail about the story of his going to the Syria and he meeting Buhaira, who's the monk. But I think I will stop here just because the time is getting over 9. Inshallah, we will start from here next time. Okay, so I will pray to Allah that Allah give us benefit from what we have learned and protect us and make it benefit for us. Jazakumullah khair. Inshallah, we'll see you next week.